Hey guys. Okay, so if you've got a property that is constrained by the biodiversity overlay, then you're going to need to know about DFPs. What on earth are DFPs? Well, DFP stands for Development Footprint Plan, or if you're more used to the old terminology, it's what we used to refer to as a BLE, or Building Location Envelope. In super simple terms, as the name suggests, it's essentially a line on a page that demarcates the buildable zone versus the no-go zone. So it's an area where you're allowed to do land disturbing works. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson as to how they came about. Don't quote me on it because this is just stuff that I've been told over the years. But I've been led to believe that they were introduced in the mid-90s, so let's say 1995, 1996, around that sort of time. And they're essentially introduced to help reduce the environmental degradation we were seeing in some of our more rural areas. So areas like Gumdale, Pullen Vale, Brookfield, all of those sort of areas. See, if people are left to their own devices, they would sit here and go, okay, I'm going to stick the house over there. Then we're going to put the tennis court over there, and then the pool, well, it's got to go way back there. And of course, we need access and flow between all the structures, so we've got to bulldoze all of the trees between those structures. It was not a good outcome for the environment. So council introduced DFPs, previously called BLEs, as a way to try and bring all of these structures together, and therefore to reduce the impact, I guess you say, on the environment. Now, they were amazing back in the beginning, but over time, people started using them for a variety of different reasons. So you fast forward to probably the mid-2000s, so 2005, 2006, again, I'm just throwing rough figures out there. These things had kind of become a bit of a taboo subject, let's just say. They developed a negative reputation. Unfortunately, the public didn't understand what the intent behind a BLE was, and they were misusing them. See, the BLE is supposed to nominate an area where you're allowed to build, but you still need to comply with all other requirements. So all other town planning requirements and certification requirements. People didn't quite get that. They saw BLE and went, oh, great, we can max that out. So they're often being used on small lots, for example. And these small lots, you'd have a BLE that might sit right on the side boundary, or it might sit right on the front boundary. Didn't mean you could build your whole house on the front boundary, but that's how people are interpreting it. They didn't realize that they still need to comply with the front boundary setbacks, the side boundary setbacks, the rear boundary setbacks. You get the idea. So probably, yeah, the mid-2000s, the industry as a whole sort of took a step back from the whole BLE concept. They were put in the, let's just say, too hard basket. People didn't really know how to handle them. Anyway, fast forward to now, we still use them, we always have, but we tend to use them only or exclusively for vegetation reasons these days. So we still use them in areas where you've got the biodiversity overlay. Now, in super simple terms, the way the planning scheme works is if you have an approved DFP, so a DFP that was put in place either via the original subdivision, if the subdivision was done, let's say from the 1990s onwards, or if it was done as part of a subsequent house application. So if you've got the approved DFP in place, and if you're staying within the bounds of that approved DFP, you don't need town planning approval. Super simplified summary right there. But yes, if you stay within the approved BLE, DFP, happy days. If you step outside of that approved area, or if you don't actually have one because your block was approved or it's subdivided prior to, let's say, mid-1990s, then you need to lodge a town planning application. So that's how we come across these things these days. Now, we're going to jump behind the computer and I'm going to show you what these DFPs look like and what actually needs to be contained within them. Let's do this. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys probably about 5 different examples here to help illustrate my points. So there's probably 3 key points that I want to talk about when trying to describe what a DFP should look like. Firstly, let's talk about what they actually need to contain. Well, they need to contain all land disturbing works except for fences. So I'm talking existing structures, proposed structures, airflow and dispersal areas. That is a big one. Those things take up a bucket load of land. Water lines, stormwater lines, driveways, you get the idea. Basically anything that involves you digging up a bit of dirt, except for fences, needs to be contained within the DFP. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the shape of the DFP. In an ideal world, there would be beautiful rectangles or squares, nice and simple. The reality is they're not, and they don't need to be. You can have them jutting in and out around the structures on the property. Like you see here, this one perfectly hugs the driveway, and then it steps in and out around all of the structures. So yes, ideally it would be a standard shape, which I'll get to in a sec, but it doesn't need to. And we'll show you another example here. Again, perfectly follows the driveway, because why would you waste extra DFP on areas along the driveway you're not actually going to build structures in? Same thing here. Nicely around the driveway, covers your septic areas, your pool, your vegetable patch, all of that sort of stuff. And again, I'm sounding like a bit of a broken record, along the driveway and then jutting in and out around the house. Now, the final point I wanted to make is the size. In an ideal world, you would make it a maximum of 2,500 square metres to align with the biodiversity overlay code requirements. Now, there are 3 key things you need to talk about. Let's talk about how you actually design these things. As I mentioned, you can make it a totally irregular shape. You can go as crazy as you want. However, it is a compliance headache if you go super, super crazy. So you want to try and make it as standard as possible while still containing all of the structures. The reason I say that is if you get out on site, so you just take this little example right here. How do you know where that point is? I mean, and how do you know where these 2 points are? And let's go back to a more crazy sort of example. This one here, how do you know where that curve is? It becomes a bit messy. Whereas if you have a stock standard rectangle that's, let's say, 5 meters off the front boundary, 2 meters off the side boundary, 50 meters off the rear boundary, it becomes really easy to work out where you're allowed to build within. Whereas when you're stuck in these messy shapes, it becomes hard to sort of work out on site. So yes, you can go crazy, but try not to go too crazy. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the size. So, like I mentioned before, 2,500 square meters. Let's say, for example, you can cover all of your structures within 2,200 square meters. I would recommend you beef it up and go to the 2,500 square meters. Because here's the thing, if you cover the future areas or future expansions, let's just say, I mean, sit here and think, hey, do you want to put a patio out the back there? Do you want to put a pool out the back here? If you can cover those areas in the DFP now, it means down the track you shouldn't need a town planning application, provided all the rules don't change between now and then. So you basically safeguard yourself or future-proof yourself by maxing it out to that upper limit, let's just say. Don't go too crazy. Like if your buildable area is 1,000 square meters, don't just cover 2,500 square meters. A little bit unnecessary. But if you've got 2,200, bump it up to 2,500 to give yourself that room to move in the future. Now, the final comment I want to make when it comes to designing your DFPs is try to align with unconstrained land. So if you sit here and you go to council, okay, this is the area we want to build in, and hey, we're going to future-proof ourselves by building, or we're extending the DFP to cover over here. Hey, there's some nice big trees over there, some mature, really rare trees. And oh, there's a waterway corridor. But over here, oh, it's just grass. Yeah, it's cleared land and there's no waterway corridor. Council's going to sit there and go, you're not going that way, you're going that way. So yes, you can cover trees, but try to pick locations that are less constrained, let's just say, than other areas on the property. So there you go. Now you know all about DFPs or BLEs if you want to use the old terminology. Hopefully you found this video interesting. And as I always say, until next time, thanks for watching.
For all you red tape lovers out there, I have one thing to say. Well, no, actually, I've got 3. Number 1, the advice provided in these videos is general in nature. It's not site specific. You would be a silly Billy to go and make financial decisions based on this advice without first checking with the town planner. Don't be a silly Billy. Number 2, Brisbane Town Planning is in no way linked to Brisbane City Council. The views expressed in these videos are my own, not council's. So if you don't like them, blame me, not council. Number 3, what was my number 3? Oh yeah, the views expressed in these videos are accurate at the time of recording. If you're watching this video back 10 years from now, the views may not be so accurate. That's all. Bye.